A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Anaran Flynn, and I have the pleasure of being your host for this afternoon. Thank you all for taking the time to join us for the virtual launch event of the Singapore Fintech Association Grants and Jobs Portal. The SFA is a cross-industry and non-profit organization. Its purpose is to support the development of the fintech industry in Singapore and to facilitate collaboration among the participants and stakeholders of the fintech ecosystem in Singapore. The SFA is a member-based organization with over 750 members. It represents the full range of stakeholders in the fintech industry, from early-stage innovative companies to large financial players and service providers. To further its purpose, the SFA also partners with institutions and associations from Singapore and globally to cooperate on initiatives relating to their fintech industry. The SFA has signed over 50 international memorandums of understanding and are the first U-associate organization to be affiliated with the National Trades Union Congress. The SFA Grants and Jobs Portal that we're launching today will enable job seekers to access the latest job vacancies in the sector, available grants, relevant training opportunities, and the latest news within the fintech sector. SFA has also collaborated with organizations, including institutes of higher learning, to generate content for the portal. In addition, the Grants and Jobs Portal will be highlighting various schemes available under the SG United Traineeship and Skills programs. Without further ado, I would like first to invite the President of the Singapore Fintech Association, Mr. Chia Hock Lai, to give us an introduction to these new fintech support initiatives and deliver his welcome address. Thank you, Mr. Chia.
Ms. Indrani Raja, Minister for Prime Minister Office, Second Minister to the Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Education, Mr. Henry Tan, Group CEO for Nexia TS and Treasurer of Singapore Fintech Association, panel speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. My name is Hock Lai. I'm the President of the Singapore Fintech Association. First of all, let me thank our guest of honor, Minister Indrani, and our panel speakers for taking their time off today to grace this event and to share their knowledge and experience. Today, while we gather here to launch the SFA Job and Grants Portal and to mark the new partnership with Nexia TS, 3 months ago, things were quite different, a lot less optimistic. On the 25th of March, 3 months ago, during the virtual AGM of SFA, I mentioned that SFA had our best year in 2019. We published a total of 4 industry reports, ranging from fintechs in ASEAN to fintech talent. We conducted 7 overseas trade missions, benefiting more than 66 members in their internationalization journey. We conducted more than 133 events with more than 55 partners to enable our members to network and share knowledge with one another. We took up the largest trade pavilion during the Singapore Fintech Festival with more than 22 members in our pavilion. In our Fintech for Schools program, we impacted more than 4,000 students and let them know more about job opportunities in the growing fintech sectors. We ended the year with more than 350 corporate members and partnerships in 40 countries. However, COVID-19 upended everything. In our membership survey during mid of March, close to half of our members indicated that they were significantly impacted by COVID-19, especially the smaller fintech companies. They were impacted in 3 areas: business costs, sales, and funding. Fintechs are affected by the following reason. Projects were either delayed or reprioritized. Investors were very cautious to fund, and while they still have the investment mandate, they are focusing on their existing portfolio companies. Without the ability to travel, new sales or business development activities were paused. And Singapore fintech ecosystem is more impacted relatively because due to our profile, being the largest fintech hub in the region, whereby more than 45% of fintech companies are based in Singapore. So in absolute number, more fintech companies were affected. More than 80% of our fintech companies operate beyond Singapore. With the restriction in international travel, their business are also impacted. The industry needed help and they needed it fast. For SFA, we need to act fast or risk being rendered irrelevant. The big member base and strong international partnership were rendered ineffective when international travel is imposed and we can't do any in-person events. So we did 3 things quickly. First, we set up a COVID-19 task force made up of key members of the EXCO and the secretarial team. Second, we shared information with the Monetary Authority of Singapore, which is forever proactive, and they were already working on some support measures for the industry. We reach out to industry players who are able and willing to help during these difficult times. So what happened next for the last few months is a flurry of initiatives designed to support the fintech ecosystem. On the 8th of April, MAS launched a 135 million support package for financial institutions and fintech companies. SFA played the stewardship role to certify fintech companies so that they are eligible for all the various support schemes. For example, the digitalization access grant allows them to claim up to 80% of the costs they incurred on using digital tools. For example, a typical fintech company would spend about $60,000 a year on cloud computing. 80% of $48,000 of this cost can be claimed from MES. By mid of April, industry players like Amtd and Razer had come up with funding support for the fintech companies, whether is it in terms of bridging loans, equity investment, or convertible loans. For example, SFA helps to curate applicants for the Razer Support Fund. More than 35 members have applied for the grant, and about 14 of them are in an advanced stage of collaboration with Razer. On the 13th of May, MES, SFA, and Amtd launched a 6 million Fintech Solidarity Grant. It is made up of 2 components to support business sustenance and business growth. For example, for the business sustenance grant, which can be used to defray salary and rental costs, we received an overwhelming of 235 applications. Just last Friday, we awarded the grant to 206 members. On the 10th of June, SFA, with the support of MES, also launched the Fintech Service Provider Compliance Readiness Framework. Because in Singapore, more than 80% of our members work with financial institutions, we standardize the minimum requirements in terms of outsourcing, cyber hygiene, and technology risk, so that fintech companies can work more sustainably with financial institutions. 1 month later, on 13th of July, we inked a strategic partnership with the Amtd Group. SFA members now has the option to be part of the Amtd SpiderNet network so that they could hunt in a pack in the region. We also launched the Amtd SFA Global Fintech Fellowship Program, whereby every year we will select up to 10 fintech founders and help to skill them across the world, whether it's in Middle East, North America, or Asia. Not only building up their network in the various regions, but also opening up access for them to the capital markets all over the world. In short, the ecosystem responded strongly with a strong element of public-private partnership. The ecosystem stand behind the fintech companies in solidarity and fortitude to support growth of fintech companies and protect jobs. While it's too early to assess the effects of all these support programs, there are positive signs. For example, the Boston Consulting Group in a report in June noted that fintech investments in Singapore rose by 19% to 425 million and registered strong growth in the months of April and May after a flat Q1. In the member survey on manpower in mid-May, while 27% of our members had indicated that they had downsized some of their headcount, 2/3 of them indicated the downsizing is temporary, and they are still very positive about the sector. Since April, the corporate membership of SFA more than doubled to 750. And there are more good news because while COVID-19 has been devastating, it became the biggest catalyst for digital transformation. It accelerated digital adoption of all things digital, including finance, for consumers of all ages and businesses of all sizes. In Singapore, we even have hawkers go digital. In the report by Straits Times in early May, various players indicated there is a significant adoption of digital services. DBS stated that they are in line to achieve 1 million customers fully digital 1 year earlier. And out of the 100,000 new customers who are doing banking online digitally, more than 30% of that were above 50 years old. OCBC registered a 3 times increase in PayNow transactions. UOB, their banking mobile app, registered more than 44% increase during the same period compared to last year. Singtel Dash registered 2 times increase in their remittance customer base. GrabPay states that Grab payments in their Grab delivery service increases by 200%. So in summary, while fintech companies are facing short-term challenges, medium to long-term growth prospects of the fintech sector is very positive. Over the past few months, I have received various inquiries from members to seek help in terms of hiring or to navigate the various support schemes available to them. So I'm glad that today we are launching the SFA Grants and Jobs Portal. Later, I will do a quick demo. At the same time, we had a new partner today. We will be signing a strategic partnership with Nexia Group so that our members will be able to access up to 2 hours of free business advisory services and also have access to their innovation lab for co-creation with businesses from various sectors. I will let Mr. Henry Tan to elaborate more. To conclude, the Singapore fintech ecosystem has grown by leaps and bounds over the last few years. I would like to thank our partners and members for their leadership during this crisis period. Hopefully your leadership will inspire more people to come forward to support the growing fintech sector. Next, I would like to do my demo now. So this is the new SFA jobs portal. If I'm a job seeker, I can just click on this link. And you have access to more than 500 jobs currently available related to fintech. There are a few ways for you to navigate the portal. You can either search and then choose the categories you want. For example, you can see that for business development, there are more than 50 vacancies. Or on information technology, more than 200 vacancies. Or you can even browse by job categories. Last but not least, we also listed the various upskilling programs available to you, and also the various grant scheme and SG United traineeship and skills program available for you. So I hope you can give it a try. Thank you, and I would like to hand over the airtime to the MC. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Now, as you all know, we're gathered here today to witness the signing of an MOU between Singapore Fintech Association and Nexia TS. I would like now to invite our guest of honor, Ms. Indrani Turai Raja, Minister of the Prime Minister's Office, Second Minister of Finance, Second Minister of Education, to witness this occasion. Ms. Raja, please. Now, this Memorandum of Understanding is signed to commemorate the industry partnership formed between the Singapore Fintech Association and Nexia TS to closely collaborate on newly opened Nexia InnoLab and provision of up to $720,000 advisory assistance for fintech companies. Thank you, Ms. Raja, Mr. Chia, and Mr. Tan. Ms. Raja, we'd like to invite you to take your seat, please. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see from behind us, we are streaming live today from a new and exciting location, the Nexia InnoLab, a modern workplace that aims to promote collaboration between businesses and fintech members to work on innovative solutions through the use of technology and InnoLab's collaborative digital tools. I would like to once again invite our guest of honor for today, Ms. Indrani Turai Raja, Minister of the Prime Minister's Office, Second Minister for Finance, and Second Minister for Education, to conduct a voice-activated launch for this space. Ms. Raja, may I invite you to initiate the voice-activated launch.
Thank you. I would like to declare the Nexia InnoLab officially open.
Now that was an exciting introduction for the launch of this meaningful initiative. On behalf of Nexia TS, I would like to invite everyone that is interested to reach out to us. The business advisory team will be absolutely delighted to sit down and have a cup of coffee to discuss any projects you may be currently working on. Our next speaker for today is Mr. Henry Tan. Mr. Tan is the Group CEO and Chief Innovation Officer here at Nexia TS. Mr. Tan, please.
Thank you, Minister Indrani Raja, Mr. Chia Hock Lai, President of SFA, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Hock Lai, for this wonderful opportunity for Nexia TS to work with SFA members. We're indeed very happy to offer the consultation clinics to many of the fintechs who at the moment, just like any SMEs, are in need of cash flow planning, funding, taxation and other risk management work. We look forward to cooperation across, especially for also our fintechs in SFA, to work with our more than 700 SME clients. Nexia TS is a homegrown firm founded in 1993, and this year it is 27 years of serving SME in their growth. It started as a two-man firm in the old shop house in Boat Quay, where Singapore started its economic beginnings. We survived through the Asian financial crisis, the SARS crisis, global financial crisis, and also we hoped to survive this COVID-19 pandemic. Today, Nexia TS is a recognized accounting and advisory professional firm in Singapore with offices in the region. This is the reason why Nexia TS has decided to step forward to support a new economy like fintech, and in particular, how we can integrate fintechs into the life of many of the SMEs, creating a win-win solution as SME transform their business model. Our InnoLab has a state-of-art collaboration board and tool ideal for brainstorming, generation of ideas based on a problem statement, and working together to come up with a prototype to solve the problems. The facilities include physical, as what you have seen here, as well as virtual platform, as we have a NTS CoLab tool, which is powered by HeyHi technology platform, which allow access remotely to our InnoLab. A few years ago, we also started a business case challenge for our tertiary institute students to come up with innovative solutions using our InnoLab. Indeed, it is a very good place for our students to learn and also prepare for the skills future of the workplace. With the current strategic partnership with SFA, we hope to include fintechs into the ecosystem and work with our clients who are more than 700 SMEs. Their problem statements include payments, invoicings, collections, remittances, and also other manual processes. This all needs to be digitalized, and I believe that many fintech solutions can be adopted to assist them. And Nexia TS InnoLab will be made available for these companies to work together to solve problems with our consultants adding value. One of the examples of the project is that we are doing with the Doco, a blockchain fintech that has excellent digital signing solution that we hope to develop a NTS sign for both internal use and also for external use among SMEs. We believe that in this new norm, with the convergence of technology companies, including fintech, with the traditional companies, there will be great success. And I can think of many SMEs who have transformed themselves during this period of COVID. A traditional art gallery, Ode to Art, relies on a physical gallery for their customers before the COVID. But with the COVID situation, they have live virtual auction, tour of artist studio, and work in their home country with the use of technology platform. We believe that there is huge opportunities for fintech to collaborate with SMEs to face the challenges ahead, and also to develop new products and service offerings. And Nexia TS is pleased to be able to assist as a bridge through our InnoLab. And with this, we look forward to the collaboration. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tan. Next, I would like to invite our guest of honor today, Ms. Indrani Raja, to make her opening address. Ms. Raja, please.
Thank you. Mr. Chia Hock Lai, President of SFA, Mr. Henry Tan, Group CEO and Chief Innovation Officer of Nexia TS, panel members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for inviting me to witness the collaboration between the Singapore Fintech Association and Nexia TS on the Inner Lab, and to launch the Grants and Jobs portal. It's a great privilege to be here with you today. These new collaborations are an important step forward. The current challenges have accelerated the need for us to transform, to change and reinvent ourselves for the future so that we can emerge stronger. These are challenging times. We are living and working in a period of great uncertainty. COVID-19 has severely impacted all sectors of the economy, and the fintech industry hasn't been spared. Singaporeans have lost jobs, and we do expect more job losses. For businesses, we know that those in fintech remain worried about sustaining their ongoing sales and collaboration with international partners amid project delays and travel disruptions. Some are worried about their operations, while future investments remain uncertain. But we must see these challenges as an unprecedented opportunity to reset our perspectives, our priorities and our methods. All of these have to be reset. We must prepare ourselves not only to weather the current storm, but to embrace long-term structural change. In particular, we're seeing real opportunities for the fintech firms to collaborate more deeply and sustainably with financial institutions to boost prospects for the financial industry over the next few years. There is no better time to go digital. Now, more than ever, businesses have had to work together to innovate, release, and adapt to innovative solutions. We've seen the equivalent of 5 years of consumer and business digital adoption in just 8 weeks when COVID-19 began. There is no going back, and we will have to continue to accelerate digital transformation for the finance sector and to prepare ourselves for the post-COVID-19 world. In the 5 years prior to COVID-19, we had seen exponential growth in Singapore's fintech ecosystem. Domestically, the number of fintech firms in 2015 has grown by more than 20 times. Over 1,000 companies offer a wide range of solutions in banking, insurance, wealth management, capital markets, crowdfunding, blockchain, cryptocurrency, AI, and data analytics and RegTech. Singapore is also home to more than 40 innovation labs across our major banks, insurers, and technology companies. These labs are important touchpoints between corporates and fintechs for new projects to develop. Even with COVID-19, Singapore remains a center of excellence for R&D. We provide a conducive regulatory environment for innovation projects and experiments such as the MAS Regulatory Sandbox and the Sandbox Express. Supported by world-class and interoperable digital infrastructure like MyInfo and e-payments. With 33 cooperation agreements with our fintech counterparts throughout the world, Singapore provides a springboard for innovative solutions to develop and internationalize. Singapore has also spearheaded recent international platforms. For example, the API Exchange, APIX, was set up by MAS, the ASEAN Bankers Association, and the International Finance Corporation of the World Bank Group to support cross-border efforts between fintech firms and financial institutions to integrate and test solutions via cloud-based architecture for financial innovation and inclusion. The Business Sans Borders, or BSB, initiative by MAS and IMDA was the first integrated end-to-end connector of multiple platforms of its kind. It will continue to help SMEs with seamless trade, financial services, and innovation by providing them access to a larger ecosystem of buyers and sellers and to more logistics, financing, and digital solution providers. These have all contributed to a strong international value proposition and have helped us to be recognized. Last year, fintech investments in Singapore increased nearly sixfold year-on-year since 2015, reaching a record high of $1 billion. This year, even with COVID-19 and the challenges that this crisis of a generation has brought on, Singapore's fintech industry continued to attract investments of over $500 million in the first half of 2020. This is a testament to continued confidence in Singapore as a world-leading fintech hub. Given the vibrant ecosystem we have built up, Singapore's fintech firms are still well positioned to partner our financial institutions and lead the charge towards digital transformation, especially as more businesses in our financial sector look to new digital solutions. So I understand that some of you are already involved in leading the charge, with novel projects already underway. Given the renewed focus on safe distancing and on hygiene in the COVID-19 environment, some of these solutions have become even more relevant than ever. Our banks have been introducing more remote and contactless banking solutions. DBS has introduced a comprehensive suite of contact-free trade financing digital solutions to eliminate paper-based applications at trade counters. Since April, OCBC has been operating its virtual wealth advisory service, which allows customers to engage their advisors and transact their wealth products online. And this has paid off. More than 1,000 OCBC financial and wealth advisors have been contacting their clients via these virtual facilities. Another example of remote financial services is MyCash, which is an online remittance and marketplace solution for migrant workers. This is the only remittance app in Singapore that caters to the Bangladeshi community, providing language support, interoperability, and on-site assistance. Since launching in June, MyCash has facilitated remittance of more than 1.5 million Singapore dollars for over 5,000 workers. Grab, NTUC Income, and Zhong'an Technologies Insurance International have also joined hands to launch Southeast Asia's first micro-insurance plan for Grab driver partners in Singapore. This insurance plan will allow such drivers unprecedented flexibility to choose a low premium between 10 cents and 50 cents for critical illness protection and accumulate the corresponding insurance coverage with each trip they complete. These are all examples of how fintech can lean in and lead the charge to transform and adapt our businesses to permanently improve the way we deliver essential services to Singaporeans. I'm confident that we'll see more of these ideas being shared and developed in the coming months, and I hope that this will extend beyond COVID-19 and have a long-term impact on the way that we work in the future. Of course, the industry will not be doing this alone. The government will continue to partner with SFA, with fintech firms and financial institutions and your stakeholders to support innovation for the post-COVID-19 future. And for those of you who are doing your part to develop and innovate for yourselves, the government is committed to providing you with our strongest support. Our 4 budgets in 2020 have renewed the government's commitment to help workers seek and retain employment and help our businesses emerge stronger after COVID-19. The Job Support Scheme, or JSS, will continue to provide 25% support for local wages to help businesses with their costs until August 2020. We've also launched the SG United Jobs and Skills Package in May, which will create close to 100,000 opportunities for our workers to be hired, train, and develop their skills. We'll continue working with businesses to create around 25,000 jobs and 21,000 traineeships. So I encourage more businesses to step forward with your openings in the coming months. We have set aside more than 500 million to support the digital transformation of businesses including support for the adoption of e-payments, digital solutions, and digital capabilities. For example, MDA, NEA, JTC, HDB, and ESG will ensure that more stallholders in hawker centres, wet markets, coffee shops, and industrial canteens are encouraged to use e-payments and reduce handling of cash. This will not only attract new customers for service providers in the fintech industry, but will boost digital infrastructure that supports future projects. On top of these, we have also provided customized and targeted support for the specific development of the fintech industry. We're committed to ensure that no one will be left behind as the whole economy transforms. In April, MAS introduced a $125 million COVID-19 package to sustain and strengthen capabilities in both the financial services and fintech sectors to allow companies to train and retain their workers and ensure stronger overall growth when the economy recovers. The package will provide a training allowance grant for employers who send their local employees to upskill themselves through courses, on top of the significant subsidies of up to 95% for IBF-recognized courses. Your staff can expand their knowledge and prepare themselves for the post-COVID future through a wide range of finance and deep tech courses. We'll also provide a Digital Acceleration Grant, or DAG, to help smaller financial institutions and fintech firms improve operational reliance, process efficiency, risk management, and customer service. A number of you have already taken advantage of this, and with strong take-up. As of June 2020, over 350 fintech and financial institutions have applied for the DAG. But I would like to encourage the rest of you to find out what you are missing from MAS. Do leverage this funding to support and transform your businesses. MAS will also provide 6 months free access to APIX. More than 200 Singapore fintechs have signed up for APIX to showcase their APIs and access potential collaboration opportunities with financial institutions from around the world without the need to meet face-to-face. On top of this financial support, firms will also have access to a fintech compliance readiness framework and digital toolkit for fintechs to expedite the onboarding process for their partnership with financial institutions and promote more sustainable outsourcing relationships. On top of this, we will also provide additional support to those building on the momentum of change and collaborating with industry partners for innovation. For example, MAS, SFA, and AMTD Group have launched a $6 million FinTech Solidarity Grant to help FinTech businesses fund their operations and retain employees related to projects or proof of concepts with financial institutions via the APIX platform, as well as to encourage fintechs to continue to offer internships during this period. I understand that 206 fintechs have recently been awarded the Business Sustenance Grant to help offset wages and salaries. MAS has further launched a $1.75 million Global FinTech Innovation Challenge to seek innovative solutions that can help the financial industry to respond better to the COVID-19 pandemic and sustainability and green-related challenges. We've also adapted our methods to establish virtual community engagement sessions and networking events to ensure that the fintech ecosystem remains vibrant. MAS launched the Green Shoots series webinar to engage and support the fintech community with practical advice and guidance during these challenging times. The webinars are attended by an average of around 500 participants from around the world. MAS and ESG have also moved Deal Fridays online to provide curated and targeted matchmaking sessions between investors and startups. I'm also heartened to see that the industry itself has come together to provide support to one another. For example, Prudential is offering complimentary insurance to employees of fintechs on APIX. Razer has launched a US $50 million COVID-19 support fund to support fintech companies. Amazon Web Services is also offering free AWS cloud credits to SFA members. As Mr. Chia has mentioned, The SFA Grants and Jobs portal will make this entire network of government and peer support more accessible. SFA has compiled a total of 50 different grants and initiatives available for fintechs on the grants portal. The jobs portal currently has over 500 job postings, ranging from internships and full-time positions. In addition to tech roles, there are positions in digital marketing, business development, accounting, and finance, and more. I strongly encourage you to find and leverage the support you need and the staff you can hire to continue adapting and transforming yourselves and your businesses for the post-COVID future. So let me conclude by encouraging everyone to continue driving change and transformation in the finance sector. Despite current challenges, Fintech has an essential role in ensuring digital acceleration for stakeholders, both in and beyond the financial industry. We shouldn't miss this once-in-a-generation chance to transform, so that Singapore businesses can emerge stronger in a post-COVID-19 world and remain viable for years to come. So I would like to once again thank SFA for the opportunity to witness this launch and the collaboration between fintech stakeholders. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Raja. Ladies and gentlemen, as we now move into the second section of today's webinar, I'd like to thank our esteemed guests for being here with us today. Thank you to our guest of honor, Minister of the Prime Minister's Office, Second Minister for Finance, and Second Minister for Education, Ms. Indrani Torai Raja, for gracing this occasion today. Thank you to Mr. Chia Hock Lai, President of the Singapore Fintech Association, as well as Mr. Henry Tan, Group CEO and Chief Innovation Officer of Nexia TS. Thank you for being with us today. We will now be moving into the second part of today's webinar, our panel discussion. COVID-19 is now a global pandemic, and through these kind of crises, we have learned that a leader's response has far-reaching impact. We have gathered a panel of esteemed speakers online today discussing the topic of leadership in crisis. Today we are joined by Mr. Patrick Tay, the Assistant Secretary General of the National Trades Union Congress, Mr. Teo Ser Luck, entrepreneur, investor, and Singapore Fintech Association Advisory Board member, Mr. Calvin Choi, Chairman and CEO of Amtd Group, and the founder and chairman of Amtd Foundation, Ms. Janet Young, Managing Director of UOB and Singapore Fintech Association Advisory Board member, and today's panel will be moderated by Ms. Jamie Lee. She is Banking and Finance Editor and the Deputy News Director at the Business Times. And with that, I shall now hand over my time. Over to you, Jamie.
Thank you very much for this time that we have. Thank you, everybody. I understand there are 300 participants on this call. And thank you very much for my esteemed panelists that are logged on today with all of the other participants that are here. We've just heard Minister's speech. Clearly, there are a lot of opportunities that are provided for the Singapore fintechs at this point. But we also thought it would be a good time to gather this team of esteemed panelists to speak to you on the other opportunities that are available. And this panel discussion is titled Leadership During a Crisis. And we thought having these four gentlemen and a very, very highly respected lady from UOB particularly will help to kind of steer you through this crisis at this difficult time. So with that, let me start. We've just gone through a launch of a job portal by the Singapore Fintech Association, and really we want to thank Singapore Fintech Association for really supporting the Singapore Fintech group at this time. Let me start by going to Patrick here. How will this sort of latest announcement help to bolster the fintech scene in Singapore, particularly in the area of jobs?
Yeah, I think before I start sharing my thoughts on how does this help the fintech scene, again, a very good afternoon, everyone. And I think the labor market is going through a bit of a downturn in the last couple of months. We have heard the first quarter advance estimates of particularly the labor market report. We have also heard the recent economic figures of second quarter just released last week. And of course, the next, the Q2 labor market report will be released next week, sometime next week. So I think for what I'm seeing on the ground, there are a lot of uncertainties. There's also quite a number of companies reorganizing, restructuring, and of course, if you read in the papers and more news of possible impending layoffs. So I think we are at a difficult period of time where we are, besides the technical recession, we are also seeing a very uncertain jobs and labor market moving ahead. But lo and behold, yes, besides the 4 rounds of budget, which Minister earlier alluded to, there are a whole series and a whole plethora of schemes and support measures. This morning, we just announced the new grants portal, jobs portal, as well as the various subsidies to support companies and businesses and individuals, particularly in the fintech space and particularly in the financial institutions, to leverage on many of these skills upgrading and of course opportunities. Because as I shared earlier, although the labor market is getting a lot of exacting pressures all across, both locally, regionally, and globally, there are also some bright sparks and still many sectors doing relatively well, partly fueled by the fact that the whole digitalization agenda has been exponentially expedited. Likewise, also the transformation agenda. So I think as we try to navigate and overcome COVID-19 pandemic and its ramifications, I think it's great opportunity to seize that some of these industries. In particular, what I'm seeing is in the modern services sector, i.e., financial, insurance, ICT, as well as in the professional services. I think these areas are potential growth opportunities, and not just this year. In fact, if you look at the last couple of years, last couple of quarters, these few sectors or industries have been powering and fueling the Singapore economy. So I'm glad to share that with this new incentive, of course, portals as well as subsidies, supporting each and every one of us in the tripartite system, with a lot of support I know from the Monetary Authority of Singapore and the Institute of Banking and Finance, as well as our employers, and of course in my case with the National Trades Union Congress and the Labour Movement, in particular the Banking and Financial Services Union, partnering in this to help SFA as well as the fintech firms to navigate and of course to seize the opportunities. I think there are a lot of opportunities, and now it's a time for us to come together as one ecosystem, one community, to ride through this wave. So I won't steal the thunder for the rest. I know I'm the bearer of a slightly bad news, but the other panelists of mine, earlier on we had a conversation, they're going to be bearer of good news. Okay. So not to demoralize anyone, but I said there are still some bright sparks, as I alluded to earlier, and I think now is the time leveraging on the whole plethora and spectrum of grants, opportunities, particularly job opportunities. Later on, we'll talk about the SG United Traineeships program as well as other programs in place to encourage the hiring and the training and the upskilling for everyone in the financial sector, in particular in the fintech sector.
Thank you very much, Patrick. I'm going to go to Janet at this point. I think last Thursday, right? MAS actually did give a little bit of a shout out to the financial sector, which is actually doing pretty well despite the crisis. There are opportunities. We're seeing that the modern services sector is doing well. It's going to be a little bit of a net job creator. Although probably at much lower levels, the growth is still going to be there. And of course, when we talk about ecosystem, the banks is a key plank or a key part of this ecosystem. So Janet, talk to me about that. I mean, how do we see sort of this current scheme, with having job portal, but also having subsidies out there? Really, how does it help to bolster the fintech scene? Over to you.
Yes, thanks. I think that, in fact, this is quite similar to what we have been working in the whole financial ecosystem when this whole outbreak started. I think the first response we had was, how do we help individuals and businesses? I think you will be aware, right? I mean, we're talking about fintechs, but fintechs are also, in a way, SMEs. I can break it into two parts. I think the first thing was we tried to do a lot in terms of calming people down. There was a lot of fear for personal safety, fear for not being able to do their jobs well. I mean, people who are used to doing operations and then they have to work from home, people who are used to doing frontline and they now, during the circuit breaker, totally isolated and not being able to move out of the house. So there was a lot of fear, plus the uncertainty factor. Jamie, these people kind of fear, hey, what am I in for? Things are so different from the past global financial crisis. So I think with that, we were scrambling at that time, trying to roll out as much as possible alongside with ESG, MAS on all the loan relief measures, right? You think about all the amortization that we have given for no need to pay principal first, ease out so that people could calm down, right? At least that ability to calm people down is also the same way that the Singapore Fintech Association, together with the community over here, is trying to calm people down. Okay, so we know this is going to be not such a short period. It may not be a V-shaped recovery. It will be maybe a more long drawn, but I think communicating that we know what's ahead of us, communicating that we know what we plan to do. I mean, our strategies remain quite intact. I mean, for the banking sector, at least for UOB, right? We are ASEAN-based. We're very much to support SMEs, support large corporates, support individuals. Those are still the same core messages, but we will need to do things differently. Right? We will need to do things differently. And therefore, back to this point around talking to Patrick just now, right? We're still looking for people who can help us to speed up our digitalization, right? We've been talking about this digitalization with SMEs, ESG, IMDA for such a long time. But this year, we could see like our corporate pay now, the registrations more than double, but the transactions volume increased tenfold. For quarter-on-quarter comparison, right? So people are adaptable, businesses are adaptable. So we believe that in this case, with the Fintech Association coming in together with IBF, MAS, and the whole ecosystem, we are thinking that they are also very nimble, very adaptable. After all, Fintech workers, Fintech knowledge workers can gravitate between Fintechs and also to banks, right? Because a lot of Fintech founders and Fintech owners actually come from previously banking background, right? Yeah. So we do have this degree of porousness. We can actually encourage people to work in a bank or work in a Fintech, and then they cross-fertilize, the whole ecosystem become a lot more palatable. But the main thing is calm people down, give them some clarity of what is to be expected, and then although nobody can predict what the future is, I think if we do according to strategy and stay nimble, I think that is really what we did. I mean, definitely, I think not just at UOB, but across the banking sector as well.
Yeah. No, I really like the points that you made. Particularly this is a crisis that's unprecedented. Yet we've seen that people have been able to adapt as much as they can, right? There's so much uncertainty, and yet people have been able to take step by step. And we will talk about this later, about leadership. But the other point, of course, is that there's cross-pollination. The fact that, with banks working with fintechs and vice versa, there are actually opportunities out there. So it's also a time for us to take stock and realize that while the headlines can look scary, it isn't dire, it isn't the situation. There are opportunities and bright spikes out there. I wanted to turn the attention to Kelvin. Kelvin, you've been very active, much more active, particularly in Singapore. And it would be great to hear from you from Hong Kong, but also your more active involvement in Singapore. Maybe touch a little bit on that, the kind of opportunities that you see in Singapore.
Sure, thank you. I think on overall basis, I think Hong Kong, Singapore, or different places, I think now over COVID, they are not that different. Ultimately, I think for the fintech community, the innovative power, I think need to be preserved, need to be supported, need to be anchored. I think all these are, of course, important future to our next growth in the economy. And I think I respect a lot, and I want to congratulate SFA for doing great leadership, great job, launching this job portal, of course, together with MAS and also other the government bodies on overall. And I think it's very important to have this one-stop portal for jobs, for subsidies, for everything. I think ultimately, I see that as you asked about, Singapore, Hong Kong, or overall for Asia, fintech, innovative power of the overall community. I think there need to have lots of support beyond a single dimension. I think it needs to be very comprehensive. I mean, first of all, I think jobs. I think we are seeing lots of needs. I think at least from Amtd side. Whereas we see that, I think any moment in time that I think every economy, we see cycling, right? So when there are downs in the overall economy, so the next opportunity will be a pickup. The next opportunity will be, better than today. So I think everyone, of course, we do not have a crystal ball. We do not know how this will last. I think we need to plant the seeds for the next. So I think now that I think for companies really with the longer term vision, I mean, it's really the right time to plant the seeds. One, for talents. Second, I think for the right base or platform for your next future development. And secondly, I think we need more support than just a simple typical nature. I think we feel thankful working together with SFA. We launched two things I think will be meaningful. One is the SFA MES Amtd Solidarity Scheme. The grants, I think we feel very much happy to see this going out to the community over in the past 2 to 3 days. So over 200 fintech companies will be receiving the grants. But I think it's not just about doing things at a particular moment in time. So I think for the overall solidarity scheme of arrangement, we will continue to support and hopefully to commit beyond this special period in time. And secondly, is the SFA Amtd Global Fellowship Program. And this, I'm not going to repeat some of the details, which we launched it together with SFA earlier last week, but then providing more of exposure, more kind of grooming of the overall talents, again, preparing the best talent for the next stage. And finally, we focus a lot into upskill educational, which I think early on, Patrick and also Janet already mentioned about the importance that I think we work together with SMU and ISS at NUS and with Xiaomi, launching this digital finance leadership program. This XC program, I think we commit ourselves again to support the upskill overall professional training of the right talents for this digital age.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to finally go to Serlap on this. Let's go down to on the ground, right? Now you have this jobs portal that's out there. What kind of gaps can this help to solve? For fintechs themselves, what are some of the demands that are out there that maybe this jobs portal can help with? And of course, certainly you can talk about the subsidies that can help to alleviate some of the funding pressures. Over to you.
Well, I think the job portals definitely help because it provides a platform that you can go there and look for the supply of jobs. Yeah. The grants and all that definitely help as well. My companies have received several grants. I'm a big beneficiary of it, as well as the job support scheme. But those are temporary measures where it's going to end sometime soon. The way I look at the fintech industry is that it's really two sectors within one industry. One is fintech by the big banks, the big local banks and UOB and all. They do fintech, but they are the big guns with a lot of resources that can actually sustain and even develop, even grow. But the other bigger sector of startups, fintechs, and all the smaller companies, that is going to go through a very, very tough time. Many of them will fail, and you probably can get the statistics from Accra, and you will see many has already failed. But many will be renewed in the sense that there are new companies come in and new fintech startups. So you will see a situation where a lot of employments and all that will come in a more random manner rather than consistently. So it's important for every Singaporean and who is interested in the finance or fintech industry to equip themselves with certain skill sets. But nevertheless, it's still going to be not going to be as easy as it is. And I would say that we will still face some uncertainties down the line, and that's the reality that we'll face now. Because even so, I wouldn't encourage the government to continue, plugging in with a lot more grants and all that, because end of the day, there are many other needs within the government sector or within the public sector, or the social as well as economics, but the social part as well have to be taken care of. So job portals help, grants help, but there's still uncertainties out there, and small companies will still drop out, and then there'll be some new startups that will come through. But it's important during this time, in the crisis time, that you can see opportunities, and the opportunities will have to come from the leadership of different companies to find your new revenue stream and the new way of using technology to actually reinvent or rebrand or reborn your startups to survive in this new kind of industry.
Actually, that's a good point. I think that's a good segue into our question about leadership, right? I mean, our panel is about leadership during a crisis. And actually, Salak, brought up this point that actually it's going to be more volatile, that we need to expect that some fintechs will close down, and in fact, probably already have, but that those opportunities will come up again. So for yourself, Salak, as a leader, or as an investor in itself, how do you tell staff or potential employees looking at fintech to say you need to build yourself with that nimbleness, understand that it's not, there's no linear path, that there is more volatility. The fintech, for example, may not last that long, but maybe you've built transferable skills that you can take to the next point. So in that sort of leadership skills, or even as an individual in itself, how do you talk to these people? How do you sort of think this through?
So for companies that I personally founded and trying to build them, I spend most of my time there. And during this crisis, or before the COVID crisis and we start locking down, there are a few messages out there and a few things I try to do. First is, contrary to what other companies do, where they manage cash flow and they don't invest, I actually started to invest, because I started to acquire talents that I never have the chance to do so, because they never join my small little startups or companies or the growing companies, because during those days of good days, they become really expensive. So right now they become more affordable because they either have been displaced or sold. So I kept in contact with these talents. I managed to grab 2 really, really good talents that into my company, as an example, one of my companies. And they have been extremely instrumental of how we have survived and scaled up. So one of the companies that is doing really well, the talents that I have managed to acquire, or I managed to attract them to join me, they continue to innovate and come up with new ideas during this COVID period and lockdown to be able to do certain things. So I invest in talent. Secondly, it's to actually drive and push the staff to actually think of new ways of surviving during this period. And you have to motivate and persuade them, but you have to try different ideas during this time, and either to transform, and it could be totally questioning your status quo, totally questioning your business model. And I did that, and it almost changed the shape and how it looks for some of those companies that we actually managed to do it. Thirdly is to really manage the tighten cash flow. Tighten cash flow doesn't mean you save, but you actually allocate your resources more effectively. The efficacy of the resources allocation is extremely important during this time. So it could also be new injection of capital, or also loans. And I actually walked the path of loans, because the government's help has been extremely helpful for us, because the interest rates are lower. And I think that has actually helped for the banks to actually process the loan and allow some of our smaller startups, with promising startups, to be able to get hold of those loans at a much lower percentage. And that can help me, not just for survival mode, but to expand. And those are the different areas that I try to do. And I think all the leadership probably have to find opportunity during this time. Although it's uncertain, uncertainty actually creates some new opportunities. And I probably found 1 or 2, and that 1 or 2 create a very good new revenue stream. And if the lockdown is over, maybe I will lose that opportunity. They have to find new ones.
But for someone else. But from sort of Salak's point of view, let me turn to UOB's point of view, right? You have here a very nimble way of working, right? We say, let's find these two individuals could really make such a big difference in my organization. But for a large organization like UOB, when you talk to your staff, or when you think about how to lead people through a crisis, how do you build that sort of nimbleness into how they think about their jobs? How do they think about the opportunities that are ahead? How should they be tactical about some of the opportunities that are ahead? And how should they think through their days when they're maybe more used to plans in 6 months and 12 months? Janet, over to you.
Okay, Jamie. So let me take it in 2 points. I will touch a bit on and respond to Salak's point about fintech, because we've been also working very closely with the fintechs. But first on the organization, I think you're right. We have had now, I think now it's about 4 months from Feb, March, April, May, right?
Yes.
One of the key things that we did at the very onset was to make sure that the top of the house, so Yi Chong himself, right, come out quite quickly to assure the whole, organization that, hey, look, from a banking perspective, right, we are here, we are essential service, and we have to remain open. So whether we are here in Malaysia, in Thailand, in Vietnam, and in Indonesia, throughout the entire crisis, and in fact, even in China during the lockdown period, the bank was never totally shut. We still facilitated movement of money. We still did a lot of loans. In fact, the last I checked, the ESG loan scheme that we have already exceeded 4 billion of loan relief measures, right? From the very early days, we started giving that out. So we gave the clear message that, banking as an essential service must always remain open. Singapore as a key financial center, and us over here in UOB, working as a group, leading the whole the countries, we must always remain vigilant and be there to help our customers. So that message was, don't focus about yourself first, focus about your customers first, because many of the customers actually need help. Many of the customers need help. Even the individuals, think of many of our customers who are in the slightly more senior category, not familiar with digital technologies, not familiar with PayNow, not familiar with getting online to do all those things, renewing FDs. So there was a lot of that in the first month that we have to put in place. So that message at the top about us staying true to being customer centric, being here for our customers, kind of took the fear out of the staff first, right? Because if you fear for yourself, you're paranoid and you're in paralysis mode, and then you kind of stop. But because we put that out front, I think the bank rallied well. We took a poll. 87% of our staff said that they adapted generally well. And also, I mean, Salak's point was also true, right? We have a bit more resources, so we sent a lot of care packs, from face masks to sanitizer to little cakes to thank people and all the nice messages. So we did all that, and I think that we also encourage our customers who are doing well to do that, and then to help the community, CSR activities and all the rest of the stuff. But if I want to take this stand and say, this principle holds true for fintechs as well. We met, we didn't stop meeting fintechs during this time. In fact, we met more fintechs because a lot of fintechs not on the door. And then with MAS launching Apex and SFA, I think Hotline and whole team, they were very active, right? Trying to say, hey, look, there's Apex, let's do job matching, let's do opportunities, let's get them to do POCs, right? And then subsidize. We met a lot of them. And I think that if you are fintech and your business model is relying on businesses that are totally disrupted, let's say, for example, travel and tourism, then to Salak's point, you may have to take a step back and really look, do you have the resources to sit through this whole period before the thing recovers? But many of the fintechs in digital payments, in lending, in digital wealth, in insurtech, in fact, in AML, in even RPA, digital signatures, face verification, I mean, we've met a lot. In fact, if we can't use, we have recommended it to our partners, and a lot of large corporates, even the SMEs, have been very forthcoming, right, in doing that. So I think that as a whole, the three key messages: one is to focus on what your business is geared towards. In this case, we are geared towards serving our customers. Two, you're quite clear that if there are businesses that are impacted, you need to then be very reflect. You need to take a step back and reflect, right? If it's affected short term, medium term, or long term, and what must we do to that? And then the third thing is rally the staff to make sure that the communication is so clear. They know that this is what they are going to do. It may not be the future is so clear, but that they are clear about what they can do and what they will do, and then assuring them that the way of doing things, you can't go to the office, but all the systems will be here to help you do things remotely. So I think that part, we also speak to our fintechs when we meet them. Actually, we encourage them to do the same, right? So a couple of fintechs we are applying on Apex to do the grant and POCs, and others we continue to work with them and give them more business. We just launched our digital wealth online for UOB asset management from the corporate side. Right now we have the individual side. So UOB AM Invest. So I mean, we are continuing to do that and foster that. But we ourselves, if we can't use, we can recommend to the ecosystem. That's our practice.
Okay.
Yeah, if I may chime in, I think since we are this topic on leadership in crisis, and particularly during this period, now that we have just sort of reopened the economy,
yes.
I think what I call the 2 C's are very important. I think firstly, continuous education and training, and secondly, communication. Particularly important as leaders, and of course in those executing many of the plans on the ground. Why do I say continuous education and training is important? In the last couple of months, we have 2 months of circuit breaker. We are only as strong as the weakest link. I think I've been interacting with many workers. I'm glad to share that many industries, many workers, in a way, the digital skills have kind of like exponentially increased, including myself. Never used Zoom and never knew there was a WebEx and Skype for Business and what have you. Never used so much of it the last 3 months in my entire 25-year working career. So I must say a lot of our workers on the ground are having to adapt and having to pivot. So I think I'm glad to share that on the whole, in general, I think unanimously everyone is now embracing tech and digital. So this so-called national agenda of trying to get smart nation, getting people to be more, has kind of like, we are forced into having to pick up all these skills. But I think in the financial sector, we are a bit more fortunate in the sense that we have already been starting on this digital agenda in the last couple of years. So I think in that sense, it has helped in a way weathered this acceptance of digital and tech. So I think that's very important, continuous learning, because even as we are talking now, there are new things that we need to pick up, because there are actually quite a lot of new opportunities because of the new measures that are in place, the next normal, so to speak, on the low-touch economy, like some propound it to be. I think there are new opportunities where we can leverage on to really pick up the skills and training for those. But on the other hand, I think communication is very important. I think with a lot of uncertainties, a lot of us working from home, there's a lot of little contact time. I mean, I know some of our big FIs are doing a lot of town halls, but I think as leaders, particularly during this period where it's a bit of a restricted movements and access and interactions, including with customers and clients, not just workers. So I think very important to communicate. I think to over-communicate, to build that trust during this difficult period. At the same time, also building the confidence and of course, supporting, encouraging our fellow workers or members of our organization, to navigate and of course to steer them out of these troubled waters.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Maybe Kelvin, maybe just to add on to that, when you're thinking about leadership, of course, points of communication, making sure that from the top, it's very clear that you have to be customer centric. I think those things are important. So if you could elaborate on that, but also could just add on to that. Since the attention is on being nimble, so what are some of the sort of specific opportunities that you're seeing now that AMTD could come in to support and to continue to invest in? Over to you.
Sure. I think what the fellow speaker just mentioned about, especially what Patrick mentioned about the 2C, I think it's particularly important. I think I see that, how I see the most important thing right now, I think from AMTD's side for overall, is invest in talents, invest into people. So I split it out into existing team, into new talents pick up, and also the investing into the future of all the talents, right? So for existing team, I see it in a way that two particular aspects are very much important. One is the micro thinking, and then over to the macro thinking. So I think it will be very much important that everyone right now, every team or people talents, they think about in a micro way how they could kind of like upskill and transform themselves, how they can make themselves more useful and support creating more values to the organization or out of himself or herself. I think that will interlink a lot with all this professional training, upskills, what they see that as a gap or what they are lacking of, but to kind of like to strengthen it up. I think of course there are a lot that we can see for this SFA portal, and also alongside the different educational side of commitment or investment from AMTD, to commit ourselves for the whole of Asia. Then I look into then the new talents. New talents, I think what Sir Luck has mentioned about, I think it's actually very important that somehow, sometimes right now, I think in this particular moment, maybe the best way to, it will be the best time to acquire talents that normally do not exist, I think, in different times of the market. That I see, sometimes the pickup of talents may be even by means or tools of not just single hiring, but maybe through acquisition. So I'm very glad to share with everyone that I think in the past few months, despite COVID, AMTD, we have completed 3 controlling stake acquisition in Singapore. So we are very bullish into not the Singapore fintech power, but also into the Singapore talents. So in each of the particular case, no matter for Policy Pal, for CapBridge, for Formal Pay, we are looking into the company with lots of potential to further develop, but really into the talents. How we build out, and to have the talents for each of the particular sub-vertical of the fintech power to further grow and connect the dots with what AMTD has for overall. And finally, I think the future of the talents, I think that's something that we all should invest into. I think I see lots of value in terms of the Apex platform. So this is not just a platform where we, a lot of talking about it, connected the dots, from fintech into traditional FI, but really about, seeing it, during COVID, Apex, I think is a center of care for everyone in the fintech community. So we are very honored to be part of the founding member. So AMTD is the first corporate member, and I sit on the board of Athens. So we continue promoting, I think, the overall for Apex. And I think Apex surrounding also the solidarity scheme of things we are doing, we see this will be an important platform that we will commit ourselves, and hopefully for the overall, not just Singapore, but ASEAN market, this will be the center place to promote more fintech connectivity, but as well, more opportunities for the companies, fintech players, and also individuals.
I want to, at this point, also point out that we actually are taking questions. So again, if you have questions, please do send them along. I believe there is a Q&A function that is available for the webcast. I will go down to, we are running a little bit short on time, so I will go to this question on, while there are a lot of opportunities, I'm really actually quite heartened that all the participants are saying, look, it is a crisis, but there are bright sparks and people should really leverage and take opportunities on that. But there are also things that bigger things like, for example, people worry if the world will become less globalized, as an example. And tech was always supposed to be a way to reach more markets at a quicker pace. So for themes like, for example, regionalization, maybe I'll have Janet answer this, because of course UOB is very big on ASEAN. Do you see that continuing, or do you see that in fact accelerating? But also, what are some of the challenges that you may see ahead as well, and perhaps how you're kind of making sure that the organization is ready for these things? Over to you, Jen.
I think, Jamie, you are correct. I mean, if you read about this all the time, about big countries, and some of the countries taking a little bit more me first, right, and more nationalistic views about how things would be. But I think that from the total perspective, the fact that, travel has been disrupted largely, has one, major impact about it being cut off. So in place of it, one key thing we feel is that, between large institutions and corporates, and between G2G, right, that like-mindedness. I mean, and if I just use let's say the UOB example, ourselves, we have always had before, COVID, and for longest of time, a unit called foreign direct investment, right? So this is to do with generally not just about fintech or tech, but companies that's coming into this region, and how to help these companies settle down, build all the network, have all the government agencies contacts. I think from that perspective about like-mindedness, these sort of both commercial and business type of connection. So for us in UOB, we try to connect the business to the government agencies for a win-win, right? And I think that part also is fostered by some of these G2G. I think you see the one from Singapore, let's say Singapore Shenzhen, Singapore Chongqing, right? You have these G2G initiatives that try to build the bridges. And then for us, for MAS has done a lot of work with BOT, right? Singapore Pay Now and Prompt Pay Connection. And then, you know, whether it is technology like blockchain or distributed ledger, trying to make sure that that connectivity actually does work, both from an innovation and a longer term commercializable cross-border payments and trade perspective. I think all these are different mechanisms. And I think from UOB's perspective, we try to make sure that we look at the common objectives, right? Common objectives of who wishes to be able to do business with who, and then make sure that the mutual benefits and the interests are being, you know, taken care of. I think at the end of the day, when we have the ability to build win-win, right? Win-win-win. So countries, business, as well as individuals, I think that part will help to, you know, bring about these to continue, even from the fintech world. So I give an example, right? So for a lot of the fintechs that we deal with, once they are able to do suitable, let's say SME tech, so let's say food ordering tech that leads into, let's say, payment, right? Or food ordering tech, because now you initially at a point in time you can't eat in, right? So they could be operating in a couple of countries, right? And this helps the small retailers to move and digitalize. At the same time, at the back of it, a fintech can come in with the data analysis and the dashboard to help the food tech and help the SME to look at how this can be done. And this can be done across various countries. And I think from that perspective, most of the ASEAN governments are helping to make sure that, you know, their SMEs who are in the retail F&B business, you know, don't die off, because the tourists from far away don't come in, and then they need to be able to foster that. So once you can find a common win-win, you will then be able to, you know, get into a space where like-minded businesses, countries, and organizations, including, you know, government agencies like what we have just talked about, right? A G2G perspective. In this case, you know, ESG or IMDA or EDB, you know, is able to help foster. But universities, I find, institutes of higher learning are able to also, you know, do that. And I think to Patrick's earlier point, continuing education. So going on the platform that, you know, this is also about sharing and educating your talent and getting them, you know, to upskill and not be left behind by this digital divide is a common theme that we have used. And we find that that's a very unifying theme for individuals and SMEs. And I think fintech can uniquely play that role very well because of their inherent tech nature in the enablement of fin, right? So that's how I see we can do to overcome some of these constraints around, you know, being you know, state, and protected.
Okay. So the universal, you know, theme of digitalization still remains, although there is still, you know, I would argue, heightened noise around things. So like for yourself, you know, how do you see it? I mean, surely as an entrepreneur, as an investor, you're going to see more negotiations, person to person, but there are also these loud things about what's going to happen between countries, between governments. Is there going to be more tension? How does that affect, you know, daily dealings that you see on the ground?
I have some barriers in getting into new markets, and some rules have changed. The partnership, you know, between businesses, there's still a large enthusiasm and also keenness to partner and get things going. It's because everybody is facing this kind of same situation. But it also opens up to a good company, if you're efficient and you're profitable and you're doing well, to acquire companies in another market, even though it's a bigger market. So I realized that I actually now have resources for a company that I own that is profitable now to actually acquire a company, say in China or in Hong Kong, and that possibility would never have come during peacetime for me. So that opens up a new opportunity. But to do and go through the process, you are limited by the travel, by some of the rules because of the lockdown, by some of the new environment that we're facing today. So it actually slows down some of the the business transactions or some of these mergers or acquisition that I actually wanted it to happen in double quick time. So I look at it as the world, the trending and the protectionism coming up, the US, China, and all this tension. I realized that I would like to go global for some or two of my ventures, but I realized that you're going to be difficult into the US or even to Europe. And I realized that there's a lot more regionalization right now. We're trying to cooperate regionally rather than globally. And that's why some of the plans of internationalization has in some way or another changed for me to more regional focus than to be overly ambitious to say I go global. And I will look at how we can do it one step at a time, say from ASEAN to North Asia and to a greater part of Asia before launching, even a bigger way to US or Europe. And that's how I've been seeing things and how it's been trending to be. And to look for local partners, sometimes it's not as easy. And you need a lot of interaction, and that's so limited now.
Okay. So a very realistic take also from on the ground. Kelvin, for yourself, of course, Amtd has bought 3 companies in Singapore, so there is a M&A trail there. How do you see sort of the regionalization strategy? I mean, I assume that has always been in place, but are you doubling up on it? Do you see yourself as a means of connecting Singapore and other parts of Asia into North Asia, for example? Do you see that becoming more important, over the next, I suppose, 1 to 3 years?
Exactly. I think regionalization, I think, is always on my strategy map. I think now that other speakers talk about it, I think now presents more opportunities. Not that because some of the companies become weaker, it's just that they see that for the new world, we need more consolidated power. We need more aggregator. So I think how to join hands and to support each other to build something stronger is a lot more meaningful. So ultimately, I think magnitude size matters. And I think how to actually build something of a holistic approach. I think it's something that even for the customer side would be important, because the customers, of course, are in greater power. They want more facilitation and also quicker and more transparent one-stop services products as well. So I think for what we are building, yes, I think it's part of the demonstration of our regionalization approach, that we are eyeing into opportunities in Singapore to build it out, for our Amtd digital company, now headquartered in Singapore, but to expand into other places, right? So I think the different places you talk about it, no matter North Asia, no matter you're talking into about the Greater Bay. So earlier this year, even before COVID, right? At the World Economic Forum, we hosted, very successfully a Smart Asia, connecting Singapore with ASEAN and Greater Bay event. And I think on an overall basis, I think this is actually our vision to connect the dots between the major market for Asia. I think it's already big of a size of a market for us to focus on. I think I agree with Sherlock. It's really not about global yet, but first, doing our part for regionally. And I think, just as one example that you see it when we run the virtual bank in Hong Kong, a partnership with Xiaomi, that everyone looking at it as it not just for Hong Kong virtual bank, it's really looking into Greater Bay. And again, you're looking into our presence now in Singapore. We're looking Singapore as a hub into the rest of Southeast Asia. So ultimately, it's connecting the dots.
I have one question which I would kind of turn into a comment. So someone from Annie just asked, how do you see traditional banks like UOB working with digital banks like Amtd coming together? Let me be presumptuous and say I assume the panelists will come together and exchange contacts. And I think if there's money to be made, I assume that they will come together with something and then we can report on it. I am conscious of time. It's just the last minute. So if I could get Patrick to round up this session. Unfortunately, we ended off a little bit more on the realistic take to say that, amid some noise, regionalization will have to continue. We'll have to be a bit more nimble. What will be your sort of last message to the Singapore fintechs, to really make sure that they carry through this crisis?
I think even as we look at many countries looking more internal, fueling the internal economy as well as being more protectionist, I dare say that particularly in Singapore, we are in the unique geography we are in a unique geopolitical situation, and we are, nicely placed because of many of the years that we have been cultivating, and of course building Singapore as a hub, as well as a global trade leader. I think in particular, if you look at financial services, in particular fintech, we are talking about exchange in trade in services. So I think Singapore is best poised. We have very strong infrastructure, world-class infrastructure, as well as connectivity, as well as many of the big boys. I think you look at Fortune 500 companies, many of the big organizations that set up shop here, either headquartered here or have a hub here, serving Asia as well as Asia Pac. So I do see a lot of opportunities for our fintech firms. I think the key thing now is how can we pivot, particularly with this new and working and operating landscape and environment. How can we pivot to better serve the clients, the customers, as well as the potential businesses and opportunities, not just in Singapore, but in the region. And of course, we all know latter half of this year, MAS is releasing 5 new digital bank license. We are all watching that space very closely, even from the labor movement perspective, because we also see opportunities for jobs for Singaporeans in that space. We are paying quite a close watch on that because of my really very big concern about the future, particularly with impending job losses. So I think there's a lot of opportunities coming ahead. I think the key, like I shared earlier on, is for leaders, particularly in this crisis, to communicate and to build that trust, build that ownership, and to remove all these uncertainties of the people and your clients and customers. At the same time, of course, pick up the new skills through continuous learning. I think you can't help, particularly in this day and age, to be able to always on the go. Like they said, the half-life of skills is 5 years. So I think it's now further shortened.
Yes.
There's new things picking up, and new policies, new advisories that is sprouting on the go, literally coming at hard and fast, not just in Singapore, but in the region and globally. So I think we need to be as nimble as possible, as my panelists has reiterated.
Thank you so much, 4 of you, for your time, for being with us. With that, I'm going to hand it back to our host at SFA. Thank you very much.
So with that, we've come to the end of today's session, and thank you very much to our panelists for sharing with us your valuable insights and expertise. Mr. Patrick Tay, the Assistant Secretary General of the National Trades Union Congress, Mr. Teo Ser Luck, Entrepreneur, Investor, and Singapore Fintech Association Advisory Board Member, Mr. Calvin Choi, Chairman and CEO of Amtd Group, as well as the Founder and Chairman of Amtd Foundation, Ms. Janet Young, Managing Director of the UOB and Singapore Fintech Association Advisory Board Member. And thank you, Ms. Jamie Lee, of course, Banking and Finance Editor and the Deputy News Director at the Business Times, for moderating this discussion.
Take care.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today. Please do take some time to visit the Singapore Fintech Association Grants and Jobs portal that we did launch today at www.jobs.singaporefintech.org. We look forward to seeing you next time, so have a nice day ahead. Thank you.